Have you ever felt like you've been busy for 8 hours straight, but at the end of the day, you realize you haven't actually accomplished anything meaningful? You're answering emails, Slack messages, and jumping between tabs, but your biggest goals aren't moving. Today, we're diving into Deep Work by Cal Newport. This book isn't just about time management. It's a high-stakes blueprint for surviving an economy that is trying to steal your attention. Stay with us until the end, because I'm going to share the Shutdown Ritual, the one specific habit Newport uses to completely disconnect his brain so he can produce elite-level work the very next day without burning out. Our focus is a finite, precious resource, and right now, it's under attack. Newport argues that most of us are wasting our potential because we've mistaken busyness for productivity. We spend our lives in shallow work, logistical tasks that are easy to replicate and don't create new value. But what if you could develop the superpower of the 21st century? The ability to quickly master hard things and produce at an elite level. Real productivity isn't about doing more tasks. It's about becoming the person who has the cognitive depth to do the right things. It's the difference between spinning your wheels and actually winning the race. Lesson 1. Deep work is a skill, not just a habit. Imagine it is 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, and you have just sat down with a steaming cup of coffee, ready to finally tackle that big project. The one that requires your absolute best thinking, the one that could actually change the trajectory of your career. You open a blank document. The cursor blinks, a rhythmic, mocking heartbeat against the white screen. You feel the weight of the task, that slight internal resistance that comes when you're about to do something difficult. And then, it happens. Without a single conscious thought, your hand reaches for your phone. You tell yourself you're just checking the time, but 3 seconds later you're scrolling through a feed of strangers' opinions. 10 minutes vanish. You put the phone down, feeling a pang of guilt, and look back at the screen. The cursor is still blinking. You try to focus, but your brain feels itchy, desperate for another hit of dopamine. You think to yourself, I just don't have the habit of focusing, or I'm just not a focused person today. But here is the cold, hard truth that Cal Newport wants you to understand. Your inability to concentrate isn't a lapse in character or a bad mood. It is a physical atrophy of a cognitive muscle. We live in a world that has systematically trained us to be distracted. Every time you pull your phone out to kill 30 seconds of boredom while waiting for an elevator, or every time you switch tabs because a paragraph got slightly too complex to read, you are effectively training your brain to never tolerate a lack of novelty. You are teaching your neurons that the moment cognitive effort rises, it's time to bail. Deep work is not a faucet you can simply turn on because you've decided to be productive today. It is a high-level athletic skill, akin to a professional golfer's swing or a grandmaster's chess vision. If you haven't spent hours in the mental gym practicing the art of intense, undivided concentration, you simply won't be able to do it when it matters most, no matter how much willpower you think you have. To turn this around and master this lesson, you have to stop treating focus as something you do and start treating it as something you practice. The pro-level shift starts with productive meditation. The next time you are doing a physical task, walking the dog, showering, or commuting, choose one specific, complex professional problem and hold it in your mind. When your attention inevitably wanders to what you want for dinner or a nagging email, gently but firmly pull it back to the problem. Do not let yourself switch. This is a rep for your brain. By deliberately choosing to stay with the discomfort of a single thought, you are rewiring your brain to handle the intensity of deep work. You are moving from a state of constant mental fragmentation to a state of cognitive depth. But this is only the first layer of the fortress. If you truly want to bridge the gap between spinning your wheels and achieving elite-level output, you have to understand how this skill fits into the larger architecture of your day. Most people fail here because they treat focus as an isolated event rather than a systematic lifestyle. They try to go deep, while leaving the door open to the very distractions that broke their brain in the first place. This is why you cannot afford to skip a single second of what's coming next. We are about to move past the theory and into the law of productivity and the attention residue trap, the invisible forces that are currently draining your genius without you even realizing it. If you want to stop being a passenger in your own career and start becoming the most valuable person in the room, you need to see how these lessons stack together to create an unbreakable workflow. Stick with me, because the shift we're about to discuss in Lesson 2 is the exact reason why some people work 4 hours a day and achieve more than those pulling 12-hour shifts. Lesson 2. The Law of Productivity. You've finally cleared your desk, silenced your phone, and committed to the skill of focus we discussed in Lesson 1. You feel ready. But then a subtle, invisible enemy creeps in. You've been working for 3 hours, yet when you look at your progress, it feels thin. It lacks the edge you were hoping for. You start to wonder if you're just not talented enough, or if the project is simply too big for one person. This is where most people quit, retreating back to the safety of busy work. But the problem isn't your talent. It's that you are unknowingly violating a fundamental law of the universe. Cal Newport calls this the law of productivity, and once you see the math behind it, you will never look at a work day the same way again. Think of your brain like a high-performance engine. Most people try to win the race by simply keeping the engine running for as many hours as possible, the grind mentality. They boast about 10-hour workdays, but they're driving with the parking brake on. Their intensity of focus is at a 2 or 3 because they have 14 browser tabs open, a podcast playing in the background, and a quick glance at a news notification every 20 minutes. According to the formula, high-quality work produced equals time spent, multiply with intensity of focus. If your focus is a 2, you have to work 5 times longer than someone whose focus is a 10 just to produce the same result. You aren't being productive by staying late at the office. You are simply paying a distraction tax with the hours of your life. To master this lesson and start performing like a pro, you have to stop managing your asterisk time and start managing your asterisk intensity asterisk. A pro-level storyteller doesn't just sit at a typewriter. They create a sanctuary where the intensity of focus can hit a 10. You can apply this immediately by using interval depth. Instead of saying, "I'm going to work on this all afternoon," set a timer for 90 minutes of zero-dark focus. No music with lyrics, no phone in the room, no quick checks of anything. In those 90 minutes, your goal is to push your cognitive capacity to its absolute limit. When the timer goes off, you stop completely. You will find that those 90 minutes of 10 out of 10 intensity produce more than a week of distracted, low-intensity shuffling. But here's the catch, and the reason you cannot afford to stop watching now. Even if you master the intensity of Lesson 2, there is a psychological ghost that can haunt your brain and sabotage your results before you even start Lesson 3. It's a phenomenon called asterisk attention residue asterisk, and it's the reason why that one quick look at your inbox at 10 a.m. is actually ruining your performance at 2 p.m. If you think you can multitask and still win, you're about to find out why your brain is literally working against you. Stay with me, because Lesson 3 is the secret to cleaning your mental slate and achieving the deep flow that elite creators use to stay ahead of everyone else. Lesson 3. Beware of attention residue. You have the skill from Lesson 1 and the intensity from Lesson 2. You've locked yourself in a room, the timer is set, and you are ready to produce at an elite level. But suddenly you feel a phantom itch. It's not a physical itch, it's a mental one. You think, "I should just check that one email from my boss," or "I wonder if that client replied to my proposal." You tell yourself it will only take 30 seconds. You click, you read, you realize there's nothing urgent, and you click back to your deep work. You think you're fine. You think you've returned to your task with 100% of your brain. But you are wrong. You have just walked into a cognitive minefield that Cal Newport calls asterisk attention residue asterisk, and it is the single most common reason why smart, hardworking people fail to reach their full potential. The science here is brutal and unforgiving. When you switch your attention from task A to task B, your focus does not follow in a clean, instant transition. Instead, a significant portion of your cognitive resources remains stuck on the previous task. If task B was even slightly high stakes, like a stressful email or a social media comment that annoyed you, that residue is even thicker. Your brain is literally performing a background search, processing the implications of that email while you are trying to write a complex line of code or a strategic plan. You might be looking at task A, but 20% to 30% of your RAM is still running task B. This residue creates a brain fog that lowers your effective IQ in the moment. You are essentially trying to run a marathon while wearing a backpack full of lead weights, and the worst part is, you've become so used to the weight that you don't even realize it's there. To defeat this ghost in the machine, you must adopt the batching protocol. Professional-level creators understand that every quick look at a notification is a massive withdrawal from their cognitive bank account. You can use this lesson today by implementing email isolation. Instead of having your inbox open in a background tab where it can bait you with attention residue all day, you schedule 2 or 3 specific times to check it. When you are in your deep work block, the outside world does not exist. You protect your mental slate with a ruthless intensity, ensuring that 100% of your neural firing is dedicated to the problem in front of you. By eliminating the residue, you allow your brain to reach a state of superfluidity, where the work feels easier, the insights come faster, and the quality of your output skyrockets. But even with a clean slate, there is a logistical nightmare waiting to tear your day apart. How do you actually fit these intense, residue-free blocks into a world that demands your constant availability? Most people try to squeeze in deep work between meetings, only to find that the meetings eat the work alive. This is where the amateurs and the pros truly diverge. If you want to know how to structure your entire existence so that deep work becomes inevitable rather than accidental, you need to see the architect's blueprint in Lesson 4. We are moving from mental tactics to structural dominance, scheduling every minute of your day to ensure that your genius is never left to chance. If you've ever felt like your day is running you, instead of you running your day, the next 5 minutes will be the most important of your year. Lesson 4. Schedule every minute of your day. You have the skill, the intensity, and a clean mental slate. You are a high-performance engine idling in the driveway, ready to roar. But then the day happens. A quick 15-minute sync turns into a 45-minute post-mortem. A colleague drops by your desk or your Slack with a "Hey, got a sec?" that ends up stealing an hour of your life. By 3 p.m., you realize your deep work block was cannibalized by 1,000 tiny paper cuts of administrative nonsense. You feel defeated, exhausted, and yet you've barely touched the work that actually matters. Most people accept this as the cost of doing business. They live in a reactive state, letting their inbox and other people's priorities dictate their life. But the elite, the pros, they don't leave their genius to chance. They understand that if you don't give your minutes a job, someone else will. This is the architect's blueprint, and it is the difference between being a victim of your schedule and being the master of your output. To the amateur, scheduling every minute feels like a prison. To the pro, it is the ultimate form of freedom. When you use time blocking, you are making the difficult decisions once at the start of the day, so you don't have to waste willpower deciding what to do next at 11 a.m. Newport argues that we have a limited supply of decision-making energy. If you have to constantly ask yourself, "What should I work on now?" you are burning the very fuel you need for deep work. By assigning a specific job to every block of time, including lunch, exercise, and even shallow work like emails, you eliminate the friction of starting. You create a container where your focus is protected. If a distraction arises, you don't have to fight it with willpower. You simply point to the calendar and say, "That's not what I'm doing right now." You can implement this immediately by starting a daily shutdown and startup ritual. Every evening, look at the next day and map out your blocks. Don't just list tasks, assign them to hours. If a meeting runs over, don't panic. Just reblock the remaining hours of your day. This isn't about rigid perfection, it's about intentionality. You are the architect of your time. By scheduling your shallow work into tight, compressed windows, you prevent it from bleeding into the sacred spaces reserved for your deep work. You'll find that when you know exactly when you're going to answer emails, you stop worrying about them while you're trying to solve a complex problem. You gain the peace of mind that comes from knowing everything has its place. But here is the chilling reality. You can have the perfect schedule, the highest intensity, and the best skills, and you can still fail if you are poisoned by modern convenience. There is a digital parasite that lives in your pocket, specifically designed by thousands of engineers to break your will and shatter your schedule. Most people think they can manage their relationship with technology while still performing at an elite level. Newport argues that this is a lie. If you want to protect the fortress you've built in lessons 1 through 4, you have to be willing to do the one thing most people find terrifying. We are about to enter the digital detox of Lesson 5, where we discuss why you might need to quit the tools that everyone else says are essential. If you're afraid to be left behind, you need to hear why being unreachable is actually your greatest competitive advantage. Lesson 5. Quit Any-benifit social media. You've built the fortress of your schedule, but there is a Trojan horse sitting on your nightstand. You tell yourself you need it. You tell yourself that being on Twitter or LinkedIn is networking, or that Instagram is how you stay inspired. This is what Cal Newport calls the any-benefit mindset, the flawed logic that if a tool provides any potential value, it justifies the massive cognitive tax it levies on your soul. But the pro knows that value is relative. If a tool gives you a 5% boost in networking but costs you 50% of your ability to sustain deep focus, you aren't winning. You are being liquidated. You are trading your rarest, most valuable commodity, your undistracted attention, for digital trinkets designed by the world's most sophisticated attention merchants to keep you scrolling. The shift here is moving toward the craftsman approach to tool selection. A master carpenter doesn't use a tool just because it's shiny or everyone has one. They use it only if it significantly improves their core craft. To perform like a pro, you must ruthlessly audit your digital life. Ask yourself, does this specific platform move the needle on my primary goals? If the answer is maybe or kindly, it's time to delete it. This isn't about being a hermit, it's about being a specialist. When you quit the any-benefit platforms, you reclaim hours of mental energy that were being bled away in the attention residue we discussed in Lesson 3. You stop being a consumer of other people's highlights and start being a creator of your own. Lesson 6. Embrace boredom. You have successfully cleared the digital clutter and built a schedule that looks like a masterpiece of productivity. But then you hit the quiet gap. You are standing in line at the coffee shop, or you are sitting in a waiting room, or perhaps you are just walking from your car to your front door. It's a 30-second void of nothingness. In that tiny sliver of time, your hand does something terrifying. It twitches. Your fingers move instinctively toward your pocket, searching for the smooth glass of your phone. You feel a sudden, sharp spike of anxiety, a desperate biological hunger for a hit of information, a notification, or a headline. This is the moment of truth. If you reach for that distraction, you have just sabotaged your capacity for genius. You have failed the training because you have forgotten the most uncomfortable truth of the high performer. To be deep, you must first be bored. Cal Newport argues that your brain is like a spoiled child. If you feed it a dopamine snack, every single time it feels a microsecond of dullness, you are teaching it that it never has to endure a lack of stimulus. You are effectively rewiring your neural pathways to expect constant novelty. The tragedy is that deep work, the kind that produces breakthroughs, is inherently boring in its middle stages. It requires sitting with a single, difficult, often frustrating problem for hours without a payoff. If you haven't trained your brain to handle the mild boredom of a grocery store line, how can you possibly expect it to handle the hard boredom of a 3-hour session of intense cognitive labor? You can't. By constantly checking your phone, you are training your brain for distraction, making it physically incapable of sustained focus when it actually matters. To perform like a pro, you must start treating boredom as a high-level conditioning exercise. This is the isolation protocol. When you are in those small gaps of life, resist the urge to outsource your consciousness to a screen. Put your phone away. Look at the wall. Look at the people around you. Let your mind wander into the default mode network, the state where your brain actually starts to synthesize information and generate creative ideas. This isn't just about patience. It is about mental endurance. By deliberately choosing to stay with the itch of boredom and refusing to scratch it, you are strengthening your prefrontal cortex. You are teaching your brain that you are in charge of its attention, not an algorithm designed in Silicon Valley. But don't think for a second that this mental training is enough to save you from the end-of-day slump. Even the most disciplined mind eventually runs out of fuel. If you master the boredom of Lesson 6 but fail to understand the recovery of Lesson 7, you are on a one-way track to burnout. You will produce great work for a week, and then you will crash for a month. Most people think the secret to elite output is working until the job is done. But the pros know that the only way to stay deep is to know exactly when to go shallow. We are about to dive into the final, most crucial lesson: fixed schedule productivity. This is the secret to producing more in 5 hours than most people do in 15, and doing it without losing your mind. Lesson 7. Fixed schedule productivity. You have mastered the skill, the intensity, and the mental endurance. You have built a fortress around your focus and trained your brain to find strength in boredom. But now you face the final, most dangerous boss in the game of productivity, the slow burn. It's 6:30 p.m. You are exhausted, your eyes are heavy, and yet you feel a nagging guilt. You think about that one unfinished paragraph, that unread report, or the urgent Slack message that just pinged your watch. You decide to push through. You work into the night, blurring the lines between professional and personal, until your home feels like a satellite office and your bed feels like a place to worry. This is the work creep trap asterisk. Most people believe that if they just keep their engine running at 10% all night, they are being dedicated. But the pro knows that a flickering light never illuminates the room. To produce elite work, you need a high-voltage charge, and that charge is only possible through radical, disciplined recovery. To perform at a world-class level, you must adopt the fixed schedule productivity mindset. This is the paradoxical secret of the most successful people on Earth. They don't work more, they work tighter. Cal Newport himself stops working by 5:30 p.m. every single day, yet he produces more research papers and bestsellers than those working 80-hour weeks. Why? Because a fixed deadline forces your brain to be ruthless. When you know you must be done by 5:00 p.m., you don't spend 40 minutes choosing a font or scrolling through research. That is actually procrastination. The deadline creates a healthy pressure that drives the intensity of Lesson 2. But the real magic happens after the clock strikes 5. By setting a hard off switch, you allow your brain to enter a state of total cognitive rest, which is the only way to replenish the deep work fuel you need for tomorrow. The key to making this work is the shutdown ritual. This is not just closing your laptop. It is a neurological signal to your brain that the war for focus is over for the day. At your set time, you perform 3 specific actions. First, you do a final sweep of your inbox and task list to ensure nothing is leaking. Second, you map out your time blocks for the following day, referencing Lesson 4, so your subconscious doesn't have to worry about what's next. Finally, you literally say a phrase out loud like "shutdown complete." This might sound silly, but it serves a vital purpose. It terminates the attention residue of the entire day. It gives you permission to be fully present with your family, your hobbies, or your rest. By mastering this final lesson, you transition from a worker to a performer. You move away from the frantic, fragmented lifestyle of the distracted masses and into the intentional, high-impact world of the elite. You have the full blueprint now, the skill to focus, the intensity to produce, the grit to handle boredom, and the wisdom to rest. The only question left is, are you ready to stop being busy and start being deep? The conclusion. The world is noisier than it has ever been, which means the person who can sit in a room, undistracted, for 3 hours is the person who will eventually run the world. By embracing boredom and protecting your deep work blocks, you move from being a distracted cog in the machine to a high-value creator. Now I want to hear from you. What is the #1 distraction that breaks your focus during the day? Is it your phone, your inbox, or something else? Drop a comment below. I'll be responding to as many as I can to help you troubleshoot your focus. And if you're ready to stop being busy and start being productive, hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the books that actually move the needle.